The ship fell from the sky like a wounded bird. Flames followed it as it broke through the clouds. A loud rumble echoed across the frozen land. Then silence came, heavy and deep like the snow that covered everything. Eli Carter opened his eyes. His head hurt. Smoke filled the air inside the broken ship. Lights flickered above him. Sparks jumped from a shattered control panel. He pulled himself out of his seat and looked around. Most of the crew was gone. Their seats were empty. Some were destroyed in the crash. Others were thrown out during impact. He did not want to think about what he might find outside. He heard a sound behind him, a soft growl. He turned quickly. Zura stood at the far corner of the ship. Her skin was dark like space. Her silver eyes were cold. She was tall and strong. She held a long curved blade in her hand. Her chest moved up and down. She was breathing fast. They stared at each other. Both were alive. Both were not supposed to be here together. Zura was not human. She was part of a species called Kalari. Most humans did not trust them. Most Kalari did not like humans. There was a long history of fighting between them, but right now none of that mattered. The cold was coming fast. The sun on this planet was weak. Its light gave no heat. Wind howled outside. The ship was broken. Half of it was open to the air. Ice was already forming on the metal walls. Eli knew they had to move. He looked around, found a small scanner and checked it. It showed no signs of life nearby. No cities, no help, no shelter, nothing but white and wind. He grabbed a thermal blanket and his small pack. He looked at Zura. We have to find Cover. Zura did not move. Her blade was still in her hand. She watched him closely. I am not your enemy. Lee spoke slowly, his voice calm. His hands open. Zura lowered the blade, but did not put it away. She nodded once, then followed him out of the wreck. Snow hit their faces like tiny needles. It was hard to walk. The wind pushed them back with every step. Their boots sank into deep ice. They walked for hours. The cold cut through their suits. Their breath froze. In the air, Eli felt his fingers go numb. Zura kept moving, but her steps slowed. Then they saw it. A broken structure covered in snow. It looked old. Maybe a research station. Maybe a mining outpost. The door was half buried. Eli rushed to it, pulled it open with both hands. Ice cracked and broke. Inside was dark but dry. They entered and closed the door behind them. Wind still screamed outside, but the walls kept it out. It was not warm, but it was better than before. They searched the small space. One cot against the wall, one power cell, one broken heater. Eli worked fast, connected the cell to the heater. Lights turned on, weak but enough. The heater worked for a few minutes. Then power dropped. Not enough charge. Eli cursed under his breath, looked at Zura. We will freeze in here. Zura looked around, then spoke. On bed, one blanket to Bodiaselli frowned. What are you saying? Zura walked to the cot, pulled the blanket over it, then looked at him. It is too cold. We must share one. Bedelli stared at her. He was not sure what to say. They were strangers. She was an alien. She had almost attacked him back on the ship, but he also knew she was right. Hypothermia would kill them both before sunrise. The heat from one body was not enough, but two together could survive the night. He nodded slowly. Fine. But no funny boost. Nashura did not smile. She just lay on one side of the cot, turned her back to him. Her long hair fell over the side of the bed. Her skin shimmered in the weak light. Eli lay down next to her. The bed was small. Their bodies touched. He could feel her muscles tense. She was not comfortable either. They stayed silent for a while. The heater gave soft clicks. Wind hit the walls again and again. Eli felt her body shake. Are you okay? Zura did not answer. Waited, then she whispered. They will find me. Her voice was low and afraid. Woolley asked, but she said nothing more. He looked at her face. She was awake, her eyes open, but she did not speak again. Outside, the wind grew louder. The cold crept through the walls. The heater gave one last click, then stopped. Silence returned. Adeli felt sleep pull at him, but fear kept him awake. Fear of the cold, fear of this place, fear of the strange woman beside him. Then the scanner Bapita signal was near. At humanot friendly. Zura sat up. Her hand reached for her. Bladder. Her silver eyes glowed in the dark. They had no idea What was coming, but they knew they were not alone on this planet anymore. The scanner kept beeping, a slow, steady sound. Eli stared at the small device. His hand reached for it with caution. Zura leaned closer. Her blade rested on her leg. She did not speak. The signal was weak, but it was moving. Not fast, not slow, just steady, like something was walking, something that knew where to go. Zura's voice broke the silence. "This is not from your Piaplili," nodded. "It is not from yours either." Zura looked at him. Her silver eyes were calm. "But to Stanthan, we both are in trouble." Laylee shut the scanner. The sound stopped, but the fear stayed. He looked around the small shelter. It had no windows, just a broken wall panel, and the single door they came through, not strong enough to hold anything back. He checked the door again, pushed heavy crates in front of it. Zura helped without a word. When they finished blocking the entrance, she sat back on the bed. Her hands rested on her knees, her blade close beside her. Her breathing was slow, controlled, but Eli could still feel something under her skin, a pressure, like a storm waiting to rise. He sat across from her. A small lamp flickered between them. It cast soft shadows on the walls, shadows that moved every time the wind howled outside. "You said they will find you." He kept his voice low. "How are they?" Zura did not look at him. Piaplili blinked. "Your people are hunting you." Nodded. Was Zura looked up now. Her eyes were empty. "Because I said no." He waited, but she said nothing else. To which turned her face away. Deathly frowned. "I was ordered to destroy a human ship," she said quietly. "A medical ship carrying your injured soul." Jersey refused. He helped them escape. That was Enageli leaned forward. "So they marked you as a traitor." Yash touched her chest slowly. "They took my Namathi, burned my rank." "No, I am not Kaleri. I am nothing." Her words were flat but heavy. The way she said nothing was louder than the truth itself. Eli looked at her closely. He saw scars on her arms, thin lines, old burns, not from battle, from punishment. "You saved people. That does not make you nothing." Zura smiled, but it was cold. "You would not say that if you knew what I was before." Eli stood up. "You saved me yesterday. That is enough." For Mel walked back to the heater, tried to make it work again. No power left, just a faint hum that faded fast. The cold was creeping in again. The blanket on the bed was their only shield. Zura lay down again. She pulled the blanket over her body and closed her eyes. Eli sat beside the heater and watched her. She looked peaceful now, but he knew it was not real sleep. Her eyes moved under the lids. Her fingers twitched. She was fighting battles even in dreams. Suddenly she whispered something, a name maybe, or a word in her language. Then her eyes opened wide. Her chest rose fast. She was breathing hard. Eli rushed to her. "Said, are you okay?" Zura looked confused. "Where am you?" "Are safe." Fernosh sat up slowly, looked at the locked door, then at him. "He had that dream again." "What dream?" "The one where they find me, and I cannot run. Every time I try to scream, no sound comes. Every time I try to move, my body does not listen." She held her head in her hands. "I hate being weakly." Shook his head. "That is not weakness. That is memory, and you are stronger than most people." Zura looked at him. "Do humans always say such soft things only when they mean it?" She laughed. "Just a little, just once." It faded quickly, but Eli felt it. For a moment the room felt less cold. Eli sat beside her on the bed, not too close, just near enough to feel her warmth. "You know we cannot stay here long." Zura nodded. The scanner picked up something, and I know that signal. It is 100 Dranadi. Send them before the main team to track and report. Eli looked at her. "Ho long until they get Haramabe today." Smabe Les stood up again and started pacing. "Then we move at first light." Zura tilted her head. "We're anywhere that is not here." He looked at her with a small smile. "Unless you have a better plan." She looked thoughtful. "There may be an old communication post east from here, Kilari Tekbit. If it is still there, it will be guarded." Eli grinned. "Then we sneak in, fix the signal call for help and escape this frozen grave." Zura nodded slowly. "Then we rest tonight and fight tomorrow." She lay back on the bed again, pulled the blanket over her shoulder. She looked up at Eli. "Are you coming, or will you freeze on the floor aside?" And joined her on the narrow bed. Their backs touched, both silent. Outside the wind cried like a living thing. Snow hit the walls, like fingers tapping on glass. Inside the room, two enemies rested side by side. Not friends yet, not lovers, not allies by choice, but survivors, and survivors never sleep easy. Morning came with no sun. just pale light bleeding through the cracks in the shelter wall. Snow kept falling. The sky above looked gray and endless. Eli woke first. His body ached. His arms were stiff from the cold. Zura was still asleep beside him. Her breath came slow and steady. For the first time he saw her face without tension. She looked different now, not dangerous, not alien, just tired. He stood up quietly and walked to the scanner. The screen glowed faint blue. The signal was stronger now. It had moved during the night, closer by to clicks. That meant the drone was tracking them. He turned to wake Zura, but she was already watching him. It moved. Her voice was calm, but alert. I Sally Replidu, have maybe 12 hours before it finds. This place. Zura sat up and reached for her gear. She checked her blade, tightened the armor plates on her arms and chest. Then she looked at him. Are you ready? Ellie nodded, but he was not sure. His legs were still sore, his hands cold. He was an engineer, not a soldier, but he had no choice. Zura walked to the door, moved the crates aside. She pushed it open just enough to look outside. Snow was deep, wind slower than yesterday, but cold still sharp enough to cut skin. She stepped out first. Eli followed close behind. They moved fast. No words, just quick steps through the snow. Zura took the lead, her memory guiding them east toward the old Kalari station. Eli kept checking the scanner. The signal remained behind them, but steady. It was not a mindless machine. It was tracking them with purpose. After 2 hours they reached the edge of a frozen ridge. Below them was a narrow valley. Zura pointed forward. There in the middle of the valley stood a tall metal tower, covered in ice, half collapsed, but still standing. Faint red lights blinked near the top. Kalari Tech. Eli took a deep breath. That place looks dead. Zura shook her head. Kalari machines never fully. Eli smiled. That is comforting. They climbed down the ridge, slow and careful. The snow made every step slippery. Twice Eli almost fell. Zura grabbed his arm without a word and helped him stay on his feet. When they reached the base of the tower, Zura stopped. Her body tensed. She knelt and touched the snow tracks. Ellie looked down. Footprints, small round shapes, like claws, the kind left by scout bots. Zura's eyes narrowed. They came here already. Ellie looked up at the Tewerdo. You think they left someone? Zura did not answer. She moved toward the entrance and pushed the frozen door open. It made a loud scraping sound. Inside was dark. Cold air rushed out like breath from a dead body. They stepped in together. Lights flickered weakly. Power was still running, somewhere deep in the system, maybe just enough to send a signal. Eli moved to the control panel. He wiped off the frost and plugged in his device. Zura stood behind him watching the door. As Eli worked, a sharp buzz filled the room. The lights turned red. A voice came from a speaker. Kalari language, fast and broken. Zura's face changed. They activated a recall code. Eli frowned. What does that mean? Zura stepped back. It means they know we are here. Eli typed faster, his hands shaking. Can I shut it off? Zura looked around. You contribute. Something else is already coming. Shh. Walked toward a side door, motioned him to follow. They moved into a narrow hallway filled with broken wires and cracked walls. At the end was another room. Inside was a second console, old but untouched. Zura stepped inside first. Then she froze. Eli saw it to a body. Kalari armor cold and still on the floor. Zura knelt beside it, lifted the helmet. Soldier's eyes were open. Deadbit. Not long ago. Lee looked around. What killed him? Zura pointed to the wall. Long scratches marked the surface, deep and jagged, not from a weapon, from claws. Zura stood quickly. It was not my people. Something else did. The Selly's voice was low. What else lives here? Zura stared at the wally. Do not know bit. It is hunting. Same as the drone. Same as us. Ellie returned to the console, connected his system. The screen lit up. Found the signal weak, but still broadcasting a human distress code. Milady can boost it if someone is out there. They will hear. Ashura nodded. Edie will guard the door. Ellie began typing, his eyes locked on the screen, his mind focused. He felt heat from the machine. Sparks jumped from the wires. Power was draining fast. Then the screen flashed green. Signal centripeded every 30 seconds. He turned to Zura. Danish looked at him. Then we run before they reach USA. Loud thump echoed through the hallway. Then another and another. Zura raised her blade. Eli grabbed his girth. Thumps grew louder. Close. Urza Looked at him one last time and no matter what happens stay behind Mealy nodded opened the door. And stepped into the hall shadows moved at the far end but not Kalari soldier something. Taller something faster something not from either of their world hunt had begun and they were now the prey. The sound came again, heavier this time, like steel dragging across stone. The hallway trembled with each thump. Eli could feel the vibration in the floor beneath his boots. Zura moved forward. Her steps were slow, controlled, her blade steady in her hand. Her body shielded Eli without a word. They reached the main corridor. Cold air rushed past them from a broken panel above. Wind carried something else now, a smell. Burnt metal, rotten meat. Eli Gagajura held up a hand to stop him to not speak at listens. They moved again. Shadows shifted around them. The lights on the wall flickered. Shapes flashed and vanished. For a moment Eli thought he saw a figure behind the glass. Tall, thin, eyes like glowing stones. He blinked, it was gone. They stepped into the control room again. The signal was still broadcasting. The human code played every few seconds. A hopeful rhythm in a place full of death. Then silence. Signal stop. Adeli rushed to the console. Something interrupted the system. Typed. Fast a new command had entered. The network unauthorized access looked up. Something is hacking the relay. Moved to the door. Have to go now. Lee shook his head. If they cut the signal we lose our only chance. Ezra stepped back. Toward him. Then finish it fast because we are not Alonia. Sudden crash came from the far wall. A long claw broke through the metal. Then another. Something outside was tearing its way in. Eli worked fast. A voice came from the speaker bit. It was not human. It was not Kalari either. It was deep and low like rocks grinding together. Zura's face went pale. Eli looked at her. What is that? She did not answer. Another crash shook the station. Eli finished the final command. The signal reset stronger. No, pulled out his device and grabbed his Gerzura, opened the side door again. This way he ran through the hall and back into the open snow. The sky above was still gray but the wind had stopped. A strange silence had fallen again. To Quitsura looked behind them then toward the ridge. You go west. That is not the way we Kamesh nodded. Exactly. If they are tracking our old path we must not returnally followed. Without question they crossed frozen ground. With fast steps, no time to rest, no time to think. Then a sound behind them, not footsteps, wing-shavy. And slowly turned together. A creature rose above the station door. And thin like the shadow Eli saw earlier. Its skin was black, with silver veins, its mouth wide open, without teeth, just a long deep opening. That never closeted, did not fly, it floated like gravity. Had forgotten it. Zura pushed Eli forward. Runthi reached a line of rocks near the base of the ridge. Zura pulled him behind a sharp edge of ice. Crouched low, her breath calm again. That is not Kalarili. Nadedi no had is it. Then Zura looked at the sky. A creature from the deep system. Skellery call them. Nullborn thee feed on heat and life thee follow broken worlds. And empty signal. Selly felt his skin crawl. Called at Zura nodded again. Your signal was strong, too strong. It brought more than help. Heli peeked over. The Iseth creature was still above the station. It hovered in Placethan, slowly turned and began to glide across the snow. Coming their way. Zura grabbed Ellie's arm. Kamethi ran again, this time toward a canyon Zura remembered from an old scout map. It was narrow and hard to fly through. They might lose it there. Eddie reached the edge. Within minutes slid down the Icelanded hard. But Safa there here was colder, but the rocks gave cover. They moved through twisting paths. Between ice walls, breathing heavily, stumbled Zura, pulled him up again. No rest, no stopping. Thin a new sound. Kamiya short electric pulses. Zura turned fast. Their eyes witted. Ronethi Kalari. Hunter had arrived from behind the corner. Came a black sphere floating just above the ground. Its surface open, a driveling to red eyes, and a mounted goon. Zura did not wait, leapt forward. Her blade spun in the air. It hit the drone sparks. Flew. The machine fired back. Zura rolled to the side and struck again. This time the blade went through the lens. Drone dropped smoke rising. Zura picked up her weapon. Again her arm was bleeding. Jelly rushed to her city. You are hurt. Zura looked at the wound. It will help, but they know now. They know I am alive. They know where I am. Melly looked behind them. Then forward through the canyon. So does the creature. Zura nodded. This is no longer a rescue. With this is where Ellie felt fear rise in his chest pit. Also something else. Fire, not from anger, from purpose. See you looked at Zarathan. We fight together. She turned to him this time. Her voice was soft. You do not have to stay with me. You can still turn Bakali stepped closeri did not crash here to die Alan Azura Smalata real Smilathan. Let us prepare because dawn is near and we must not face it empty-handed. They found a cave near the base of the canyon wall hidden deep and darkly set his scanner. Near the entrance Ezra rested against the stone, her eyes watching the path outside. They waited for the light to recede for the next move. From their enemiest hunter drone was not alone. The Nullburn was still coming, but so were they Zura and Alino. Longer strangers no longer afraid, just ready. The cave was cold but quiet. Outside, the wind had stopped again. Only the faint hum of the scanner filled the silence. It beeped once every few seconds. A slow heartbeat in the dark. Eli sat close to the small fire he had made from old supply packs. The flame was weak but warm. He rubbed his hands and looked at Zura. She stood near the cave entrance, still, watching the shadows. She had not spoken in Arsnit since they killed the Dronanit, since they saw that Krichurili. Wanted to ask many things, but he waited. He had learned that Zura only spoke when she was ready, not before. The fire cracked softly. Zura turned at last, sat across from him, and looked into the flames. You want to know who I really am? Eli nodded. Yesh stared into the fire. Again then she spoke. I was born on a Kalari command station. Above a red moon. Me mother was an officer, me father was a prisoner of war. They never told me that truth until I was older. When I was young, I believed I belonged. Getty trained harder than the others, fought faster, learned quicker. I rose in rank fast to fast for so Mesh pouted, her eyes still fixed on the Flamethi, gave me command. During the border wars we captured many humans, some soldiers, some were just doctors. Sunday we caught a ship trying to escape Unarmadari. Wounded humans, children. Tuli leaned in. What did you do? Zura looked at him. Now he let them go. I told my crew the ship had self-destructed. He faked the report. He thought I had done the right thing. I believed someone in command would understand. Instead they branded me a traitor. They stripped my rank, burned my record, sent me to Exilish. Lifted her arm and pulled back her sleeve. More scars, burn marks shaped like symbols. This is the mark of the forgotten. It means I no longer exist in Kalari memory. I am not hunted because I am dangerusi. I am hunted because I embarrassed them. Melly felt a heavy silence fall between them. How looked at her face. There was no pride in her voice. Only Lasayu saved Livashura. Nodded once, but at the cost of my only reached out and placed his hand on her. Sayu are not alone now, not anymore. Azura looked down at their Hanshin. At his face. Sayu are a strange human. Eli Smiladu are a strange Kalarish. Pulled her hand back gently, and yet we are here together at the edge of death with a fire and a broken scanner. Eli looked at the scanner again. The signal was still steady, but something new had appeared. A second pulsite was human. Checked the coordinates. A ship was entering the atmosphere. Stood fast. Zura joined him. What is Ethelper? A trap. They watched the screen. The ship was large, too large for a private crew. It was military Earth fleet. Eli felt a mix of hope and fear. Do you think they will help? Ashura said nothing. Do you think they will shoot? Yestel nothing. Eli turned to Herthan. I will speak for you. Zura raised an eyebrow. You would risk the Telly stepped closer. Without you I would be dead 10 times over. You saved Mayu, stayed with Mayu, bled for me. I will not let anyone treat you like a criminal. Zura looked to why you do not know. Your leaders know what is right. That is enough for meth. Scanner beeped again. Message this time simple. Codetwo word shold position. Zura stood up and grabbed her Giro Shigano. Eli blocked her path. They are coming here. Zura looked at the sky. Outside, the Kavath gray clouds were moving. A shape passed through them. A ship was landing not far from the Canyonch. Stepped back. Do not trust this. We have faced worse together. Eli said we can face this too. Took a long breath, then nodded. The pack there. Giran moved toward the landing. Zura stayed low, her weapon ready. Eli walked beside her. With his hands open, a white transport hovered just above the ground. It touched down with soft steam. Rising from its legs, hatch open. 3 soldiers stepped out, weapons pointed down, but Alertelli raised his hand. Am Eli Carter, engineer from the explorer ship Nexus 9. You crashed for days. Agath, lead soldier, nodded. Received your signal. Where is the rest of your crew? Deadly answered. This is Zarash. Is Kalara, but she saved meth. Soldiers looked at her, their eyes cold. No one moved. Then a 4th figure stepped out of the ship. An officer older looked at Alithan, at Zarahi's face, hard to read. He spoke clearly. Are you with her by force? Sealy shook his head. Be Choiceth officer looked at Zureu. Our unknown fugitive. Her name was erased from Kalari record. 2 years. Agazura met his ISE. Chose Mersai. The officer turned to Eli again. You know what she isli nadeti doth, and the officer lowered his voice and, still you protect her east. The officer gave a slow nod then. We protect her too. Turned to the soldiers, lower your weapons. The men obeyed. Zura stood still. Her hands did not relax. The officer looked at her. We are not your people, but if you saved one of our Sayu, will be hard. You will not be shot. Not Toda. Zura blinked. Onsi a small gesture, but Eli understood what it meant. Weight she carried began to lift. They walked toward the ship together. Zura beside him, not behind, not hiding. As they stepped inside the warm light of the vessel, Eli looked at her again. You are not forgotten anymore. Zura looked forward. Neither are you. The Earth Fleet ship lifted from the frozen ground and climbed into the sky. Snow blew in all directions as the engines roared to life. Inside the cabin, Eli sat close to Zura. The warm lights above them made everything feel unreal. For the first time in days, he was not freezing. For the first time, he was not running. Yet something felt wrong. The silence in the cabin was too heavy. The soldiers watched Zura with quiet eyes. Not hate, not fear, something else. A question no one wanted to ask out loud. The officer returned from the cockpit. He stood before them. His voice was low but clear. We received a second signal. Eli looked up. Another distress call, not from Unit, from Earth. Zura tense. It was at Colorino. The officer handed Eli a data pad. This came from deeper in the valley. A series of pulse, short and sharp, not a call for help, a warning. Eli studied the signal. His face went palettes. From the Nullburn. Zura stood fast. You did not destroy it. Trideli said it is still alive. The officer nodded. And now it is awake. The warning pulses match known energy patterns from deep space. Prayed out. Ashura looked at the officer. Then, why are you flying away? He answered, because this ship cannot kill that thing. But another one can. Zura frowned. What do you mean? The officer tapped a button on his wrist. Consolia projection appeared in the air. It showed a large drone crafter. Medivivity was already on the way. This will fire a sonic charge into the valley. It will burn everything within a 2-kilometer radius. Eli stood up. Zura stepped forward. You are burning the land, not just the creature. The officer looked tired. We do not have time to argue. The Nullburn is hunting. If it escapes this place, it could reach other colonia. Shura clenched her fists. You will destroy the Kalari station, too. You will erase everything. Officer looked at her. Would you rather we do nothing? Zura turned to El. Her voice was calm. We can stop it. We saw it. Know how it moves. Eli nodded. We have to try. The officer shook his head. You want to face it with a knife and a scanner. You will not survive. Ezra looked him in the eyes. Then do not wait for our survival. Just give us a chance. The officer stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. And our snow more. Zura and Eli stepped off the ship again, back into the snow. The engines lifted behind them and disappeared into the clouds. They were alone once more. Zura looked at the valley ahead. The same place where they had once hidden. No, they returned as hunters. Not Praley checked the scanner again. The signal was strong. Nullburn had returned to the Kalari tower, feeding off the old energy system. Zura led the way. They moved fast. No words now, only snow beneath their feet and fire in their hearts. They reached the edge of the ridge before nightfall. Sky turned dark again. No stars, just clouds. They looked down at the tower. It was glowing now like something inside it was breathing. Zura took out her blade. Eli pulled a charge pack from his bag. If we place this under the tower core, it might trigger a collapse. Zura nodded. And if that fails, then I fight. Eli gave a small smilithan. I Runch looked at him. You will not leave. Meh answered without pausing. Of earth he moved down the slow piece. Cracked under their boots. Their chinged thicker to breathe. Azura felt at first pressure, the pulse of the creature, like it was watching the van. In silence Ethi reached the tower door. It was already open. The inside was covered in frost and something else, webs of silver lines, vines of the creature spreading through the metal. Zura stepped in first. Eli followed with slow steps. The floor was wet, not with water, with something darker. They moved toward the main core. It was glowing bright now. The Nullburn was feeding. Gelly placed the charge near the basite. Blinked green. 5 minutes. Ashura turned, but the creature was already there, blocking the way out. He stood tall in the hall. Its face twisted, its limbs long and sharp. It made no sound, but the walls shook from its presence. Ezra moved forward, her blade ready. Eli stayed behind her. The charge blinked faster. Zura wrench struck the creature's arm. Sparks flew, but the blade did not cut deep. The creature lashed out at her. Harge flew back into the wall. Eli shouted. He ran to her side. Blood ran down her face. Stood again. Will finish this. Eli looked at the charge. In minute he stood with her. Zura raised her blade. A gainth creature moved faster now, but Eli threw his scanner. It hit the wall and exploded with light. The creature turned at Zura, struck a gainth. As time the blade went through it, screamed. The sound shook the tower. Charge turned red in second. Shura grabbed Eli. Runthi sprinted through the hall. The light behind them grew. Heat followed. They jumped through the door just as the tower exploded. Flames filled the sky. Shattered. The creature was gone fire, and smoke rose into the night. They lay in the snow, breathing hard, burned. But Alavezra looked at the sky. Then at Eli smiled. Told you I would not leave. Ish closed her eyes for a moment, then whispered, "You are more Kalari than most I have known." They laughed softly. "We'll take that as a compliment." Earth Fleet ship returned before dawn. The officer saw the wreckage, saw them still standing, and he said nothing, just opened the doors. They stepped inside together. Ellie and Zara no longer survivors. No legends, and the fire in the ice was their proof. The sky turned gold as the sun finally rose. Light spilled across the snow-covered valley where the tower once stood. Nothing remained now. No wreckage, no creature. Only smoke rising slowly into the frozen air. Inside the Earth Fleet ship, silence filled the main cabin. Zura sat near the window. Her skin was marked with new bruises. Her eyes were calm but distant. She watched the snow fade into the clouds as the ship climbed higher. Eli sat across from her. His hands rested on his knees. His body still ached. His chest was tight, but he was alive, and so was she. The officer entered the room again. He looked older than before, tired from what he had seen. He held a tablet in his hand. He looked at Zuraarth. "Command wants to debrief you." Zura did not respond. "They want to know what happened on that planet. They want your side." Zura turned her head. "Will they use my words or twist them?" The officer paused. "That depends on who List and Selly stood. Then I will speak to." He saw everything. Saved Livish, saved mine more than Ansa." The officer looked at both of them. "Nulburn is Ganath tower destroyed, bet you also blew up Kalari tech." Zura answered. "That tech called the Creaturite was not an accident. Samin left it active." The officer nodded slowly. "Believe the Kalari government may have done it on purpose." "Ado test the Creatureto test. What would happen if it was really a Sid?" Zura's hands tightened. "Then they have crossed a Lineth." Officer looked at her again. "Neef, you help us prove that we can protect Yaweli. Step beside her. We will both help, but only if you promise she will not be locked up." The officer gave a short nod. "You are both heroes, even if some will not say it out loud." Turned and walked out, leaving them. Alan sat down again. The ship flew smooth now, no noise, but the soft hum of Engi. Nashura finally looked at him. "You should go back to Earth. You have a life there." Eli shook his head. "Not anymore. The moment I crashed, I stopped being the same. Personi saw a death. He saw a betrayal. Saw you." Zura frowned. "What does that?" Manelli smiled. "It means I found something worth staying for." Zura lowered her eyes. "I am not human. I am not accepted any." He really leaned forward. "Neither am I. No, people will not understand you, but that does not mean we are wrong." Zura stood up and walked toward the window. Stared out at the starship. "Was never a place for might." Was duty obedience. Swerev walked to her side. "What is it now?" Zura turned her head. "Quiet." Pishalai reached for her hand. Let him hold it. "No fear this time." In a Walsenly truth, the ship reached the edge of the inner sectoriarth. Was near its blue glow, shining bright in the distance. But Eli looked at another screen. A colony ship was loading nearby. Turned to Zarawit. "If we do not go back, what if we go forward instead?" Zura raised an eyebrow. Where Eli pointed to the ship. "New Kalana, new world, no title, snow historianly. What we choose to build." Zura stayed silent for a long time. Then she nodded. "Let them chase ghosts. We'll make something real." The officer returned with final orders. "See, your names have been cleared. You are free to go where you go. Is your choice?" Eli smiled. "Then we already know." The officer handed them new clean records, new identities. No flags, no chains. They walked down the dock together, past the crew, past the Machina Santo. The colony ship engines roared beneath them. Inside were family scientists, looking for a new place to begin. Zura and Eli found a small room near the edge of the living bay. It was quite warm. No bed had been seen. Zura looked at him. "Still too cold?" Ellie laughed at him. "Guess we share a gange." Gave a soft smile. "But this time, not for survival. This time, because we want to." The ship lifted from the dock. Stars stretched ahead. The past burned behind them. No one asked questions. No one cared where they came from, only where they were going. Zura leaned back in the Satelli, rested beside Hirsch. Looked at him one last time before sleep. "Thank you for staying." Gelly answered without hesitation. "Thank you for becoming home." And with that they left everything Behind two outcasts, the survivors no longer lost, no longer hunted, just Alaveta Jethrin free.